In this episode of the podcast, we are talking about why you should pursue mother culture even if you're not a mom. Mother culture is the pursuit of what is good, true, and beautiful in your life so that you can create a life that is delightful. Everyone who spends time taking care of other people can benefit from the pursuit of mother culture, and in this episode, you're going to learn why. Welcome to A More Beautiful Life Collective podcast. We know that in the hectic hurry of everyday life, it's easy to lose sight of what really matters. This is a moment to pause and realign your focus on the one who gives us peace and rest. We're focusing on discipleship, productivity, and homemaking as we live with eternity in mind. This is the place where you'll learn to create a life you love and cultivate your heart for God. I'm Casey Fletcher. Thanks so much for joining me. Hey everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 26 of A More Beautiful Life Collective podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fletcher, and today we are going to be talking about something that will help to fill your cup so that you can pour into other people's lives and you can live a vibrant life that you love. We've been discussing our goals on the podcast as we have prepared for the upcoming year. And honestly, January, sometimes you can feel so go because you have all of these goals that we may forget to fill our cup during this time. We want to achieve more, to look better, make more money, maybe just be a better us. But again, we need to fill our own cups. So today we're going to be talking about mother culture, but don't worry. Even if you're not a mom, you can benefit from the pursuit of mother culture. Really, anyone who spends much of their life meeting other people's needs, so teachers, nurses, parents, grandparents, preachers, caretakers, truly anyone could benefit from the pursuit of mother culture in their life. What is mother culture? Well, we're going to talk about it more in this episode, but the simple answer is mother culture is the intentional pursuit of the things that are good, true, and beautiful, done by the person for their enjoyment. So things like painting and reading, poetry, visiting museums and parks, having a picnic in the sun, all these things can be examples of mother culture. So today, again, you're going to learn why you should pursue mother culture in your life. Do you want to get more ideas for how to create a life you love? Download our list of 100 hobbies to try this new year at the shop at amorebeautifullifecollective.com/AMBL shop, or you can get a link in the show notes. You can also get our book bingo reading challenge in the show notes and on the shop to expand your reading horizons this year. So, as you guys know, as we've been thinking about the new year, I have been brainstorming all the goals and ideas that I have for this upcoming year. You know, I want to have a clean house, continue homeschooling my kids, write a blog and podcast, work on other writing projects, play piano, learn to sew, spend 1,000 hours outside, and start exercising, all while caring for a newborn. So earlier this month, I was trying to do too much. My son was trying to do his schoolwork at our kitchen table, and my daughter was screaming and running laps around the kitchen table, and I was attempting to multitask. So I had my baby strapped to my chest while I was dusting knickknacks and crevices close by my son, and then my dog started barking, and my son got distracted, and my daughter climbed up on the table. And, worn down from lack of sleep, and on my third cup of coffee, I just yelled, "Quiet!" Wow. Slamming down the book that I was dusting on the shelf. And I want to ask you, for me, at that point, I was just at my limit. I was at a fever pitch. And I wanted to ask you if you've experienced that recently. You can have every intention of trying to calmly address all the stressors in your life. But when your toddler throws a tantrum, those intentions seem to fly out the window. You feel harried and stressed and worn out. And with those feelings, they may come out as words of anger towards your family, your spouse, or maybe even anxiety. And it's kind of a nasty feedback loop, when you're triggered by those everyday stresses. So something's going on, you yell, or maybe you feel worried about something. You respond in a way that induces stress in those around you. And then your kids or your spouse or your coworkers are also stressed out because you're stressed out. And then the cycle continues and it just kind of elevates and elevates. The question is, how do you break that cycle of stress? How do you pull yourself out of the stress that you experience? And this got me thinking about, what you do with your kids, right? When you first have kids, you go through a lot of growing pains, right? In the newborn days, your time is spent maybe asking friends or relatives or looking at Google for how to settle a fussy baby. So you check their diaper, you feed them, swaddle them, rock them, maybe give them a pacifier, and you begin to amass all of these soothing techniques for your baby that you can whip out whenever you need. And you would seem like, whenever you get past those infant days and your baby starts talking, that you could kind of just hang up your tool belt and feel like, okay, I can just switch to reasoning through things whenever I have a toddler that's crying. But we know it doesn't work like that. I read somewhere that when your kids are at their wits' end and they start melting down, you can try one of two things. You can either take them outside or you can put them in the water, whether that's a bath or a pool, or maybe have them play in the hose outside. And let me tell you, that works. If your kids just seem like they are done, the best thing you can do is to go back to your tool belt. You could say, okay, are they tired? Are they hungry? Are they overstimulated? Do we just need a change of pace, a diversion? And often a diversion is the easiest and best way to reset their moods. You can't discipline them out of a bad mood or meltdown, but a breath of fresh air will often do the trick. For us, I think we recognize this truth with our kids, but we often forget it ourselves. There's a picture going around online that says we need to treat ourselves like a houseplant. We need to make sure that we get plenty of water and sunshine every day. And it's funny that we even need to be reminded of that, but you know how quickly that the demands of life kind of get in the way between us and what we need. When we start to feel like we're reaching our boiling point, we need to pause and assess our needs. Have we met them, or are we neglecting them? Just like we wouldn't leave a newborn baby crying because of their hunger or a wet diaper, we shouldn't leave ourselves inwardly crying out for care. How many of us loved to draw and sing and dance and play sports as children, only to find ourselves neglecting those life-giving activities after kids arrive? We play chauffeur and we take them from activity to activity, while never pausing to dwell richly in the things that we love. When I was younger, one of the things I loved to do was sit and play piano and guitar, singing to my heart's content. I could play for hours after school on my little electric keyboard, flipping through pages of my favorite classic Disney songs. But now, I couldn't tell you the last time that I just sat and played piano for the enjoyment of it. Regarding mothers, Charlotte Mason wrote, "Then it is that she gets overdone. It's then that she wears herself out. It's then that in her efforts to be an ideal mother and mistress, she forgets that she's herself. And it's then, in fact, that she stops growing. There is no sadder sight in life than a mother who has so used herself up in her children's childhood that she has nothing to give them in their youth." When we neglect ourselves, we may expose our children to opportunities for them to grow, but they will be never mentored into a life that is filled with delight. And what would we rather teach our kids? To pursue something for the sake of a transcript, or to keep up with the kids next door, or to pursue something for the simple joy and love of that thing? And this is truly what mother culture is. It's a recognition that our education will rub off on the habits, atmosphere, and very life of our homes. It's the recognition that we even have an education after we've gone through school and maybe college, that we are continuing our education now. What we want our children to value, we have to value ourselves. And we show what we value and what we choose to devote our time to. Karen Andriola, the author of the book Mother Culture, explains how mother culture can lead to a more radiant living. In the home where Charlotte Mason's recommendations are followed, beautiful music fills the air, and curious, beautiful paintings are gazed upon. Nature is observed with a sense of wonder, and books, both interesting and inspiring, are savored as they are read aloud and narrated. Children understand the Bible by reading it and narrating it too. A mother reaps advantages by applying Miss Mason's education through the humanities. These cultural things aren't frivolity, but a person's every bread of life. All the true, just, pure, lovely, praiseworthy, excellent things to think about and appreciate rub off on her, her husband, and her children. As a result, a spark of enthusiasm, something hard to live without, produces radiant living. And even more than this, when we pursue mother culture. We can act as the last bastion of civilization and culture in a world that's quickly decaying into decadence. Joseph Piper explains the necessity of leisure in the perpetuation of worthwhile knowledge. He wrote a book called Leisure, the Basis of Culture. And basically, the word school, if you didn't know this, denotes for us this boring, busy work that is spent inside a concrete building somewhere. But really, the word school comes from the Latin schola, which is from the Greek word skol or skole. This word is derived from a word that means leisure, and Piper explains why in his book. So now we live in a total work culture, which is basically a culture that views work as like the sole purpose of life, and all of the epitome of life, the sum total of it, is how much work you get done in your life. That's your legacy. But as opposed to a total work culture, leisure promotes this calm stillness that's required to gaze upon the good, true, and beautiful and be changed by it. He writes, against the exclusiveness of the paradigm of work as activity, there is leisure as non-activity, an inner absence of preoccupation, a calm and ability to let things go and just be quiet. Leisure is a form of stillness that is necessary preparation for accepting reality. Only the person who is still can hear. Leisure is the disposition of perceptive understanding, of contemplative beholding and immersion in the real. And honestly, how many of us need that in our lives if we think about our prayer life and our ability to read scripture and spend time with God? Do we have the ability to have contemplative beholding? Do we have the ability to immerse ourselves in scripture? Are we constantly moving? Are we constantly descending into words? Leisure is not the attitude of the one who intervenes, but of the one who opens himself. Not of someone who seizes, but of one who lets go, who lets himself go, to go under. Almost as someone who falls asleep, he must let himself go. The surge of new life that flows out to us when we give ourselves to the contemplation of a blossoming rose, a sleeping child, or a divine mystery, this not like the surge of life that comes from a deep, dreamless sleep. I think in our total work culture, there are few and far between persons who can take form in this activity of leisure. Even those who could often waste away their lives on the next distraction. They try to be as productive as possible. And so instead of just calmly gazing, calmly thinking about things, they find the next thing to waste away their time. The next series on Netflix to binge watch. Cindy Rollins, the author of Mere Motherhood, mentioned that she felt like she was one of the blessed few who could participate in this kind of leisure as a homeschooling mom. Because of the gift of time and the opportunity to read good books, she redeemed her education. And not only that, she was able to pass on the riches of Western civilization through her work on Ambleside Online, the Literary Life podcast, and the New Mason Jar podcast. But you really don't have to just be a homeschooling mom to participate in this. You just have to be willing to pursue this kind of leisure. And this can happen beautifully through pursuing mother culture. So the benefits of pursuing mother culture are easy to see. It's through the pursuit of mother culture that you can be filled up. You can have a life filled with contagious delight that rubs off on family, friends, and community. And you can have the opportunity to gaze upon the good, true, and beautiful and be changed by it. But how do you actually pursue mother culture? Charlotte Mason explained, just let the mother go out to play. If she would only have the courage to let everything go when life becomes too tense, and just take a day or a half a day out in the fields with a favorite book or in a picture gallery looking long and well at just 2 or 3 pictures, or in bed without the children, life would go on far more happily for both children and parents. So basically, mother culture, it just requires a little bit of time and effort to pursue what we love and what we find delightful. So here's a few recommendations where you can start to practice mother culture. Again, even if you're not a mom, but somebody who just needs something to fill up your time so that you don't wear yourself out. The first thing that you can do is learn a few hobbies. We talked about this in our episode on why you should have 5 hobbies, but many of us, we had hobbies whenever we were growing up. We may have sang, ran, played in the band, but we haven't picked up those things since we graduated high school. And so this could be something that you would want to spend time pursuing today. Maybe something that you used to love to do, you could just pick it back up. And that's a way to cultivate a life you love, something that will help you to feel filled up in your life. You could also start digitally decluttering your life. We live in a world that's been utterly changed by technology. And technology, it really does give us so many benefits, including you being able to listen to this podcast right now. But it also provides a limitless distraction. And if we are saying, oh, we just don't have time for this mother culture thing, books, who has time for that? Well, one of the best things to do is really start thinking about your technology usage. Are you just mindlessly binging things? If so, you probably have more time than what you think. So digitally decluttering your life will help you to get there. You can get my 30 days of digital decluttering at the shop at amorebeautifulcollective.com/AMBL shop. You can also get outside more to visit beautiful places. I think many of us, you can imagine those times in your mind where you've visited maybe the beach or the mountains and you've just stared. You've gazed. And that's probably the best way to describe that mindset of leisure, where you're just looking and you're not looking to be productive. You're just looking in order to gaze at the delight of the thing that you're seeing. And I think that nature just has a way of making us want to do that, to just soak it in. But we also can probably remember, I remember those days in school where I'm looking longingly out the window and it's just me looking at a parking lot. And it's just because being outside, it just it invites you. It has this air of welcoming to it. So there are so many benefits to getting outside. There's physical benefits, and also there's benefits for your mind and your soul. And so if you have time to spare, I would say, go outside, and maybe even if you have extra time to spare, get in your car and drive someplace beautiful, a state park, maybe one of your favorite places nearby locally, and just spend a few hours outside, and that will fill you up. You can also cultivate your reading life. Reading is one of the best ways to think deeply about topics and expand your reading horizons. As you read, you're entering into another world of thought. But reading as a pastime is quickly disappearing. There was a survey that was going out that was basically saying, 50% of Americans have not read a book in the past year. And so you choosing to read will be a countercultural activity that will also really just fill you up, and it will deepen your thoughts about the world and just you as a person. So to cultivate your reading life, what I would recommend is just start by picking up a few books that interest you. And I would read a few pages every day in those books. And you'll be surprised at how many books you'll be able to get through if you just make it a daily habit. Somebody said recently that basically if you said you're going to read for 15 minutes a day, you could probably get through, 25 to 30 books in a year, depending on the size of the book. It's just important to make it a daily habit. Charlotte Mason recommended having a stiff book, which is like a difficult book. A lot of books on theology or philosophy would be in this category. And then an easy book, like all those self-help books or books about maybe a topic that you're interested in. And then a novel, and have all three of those books going on at the same time. So I definitely read based on my feelings, and I pick up whatever book I'm interested in at that moment. According to Goodreads, I'm in the middle of like 20 different books. But I also try to follow Mason's advice. So I try to have a theology book and a nonfiction book, an easy novel, a classic, and then maybe a homeschooling or parenting book. A lot of the stuff that I talk about here is inspired by the books that I read. And I read a few pages in these books every morning. But I also try to have an easy read that I carry throughout the day. I think that's another thing. Reading in little pockets of time throughout the day will definitely get you through a lot of books. And if you are like, well, I just have no time to read books, you definitely could also listen to books as you work or commute to and from work. Reading audiobooks is definitely something that will help you hit your reading goals. Lastly, I would invest in the atmosphere of your home. Your home should feel like a haven to return to after dealing with the busyness of life. And part of this is cleaning and decluttering, but the other part is cultivating the atmosphere of your home. So think about what your home looks like, what it smells like, what it feels like, and you can invest in your home by maybe adding beautiful classic pictures on the wall, playing music that you love, having a candle or diffuser going, getting some fresh flowers and houseplants, To bring a little bit of life inside, Miss Mason said education is an atmosphere. And so when you're pursuing mother culture, part of it is how you spend your time, but it's also how you're investing in this world around you, how your atmosphere of your home is educating not just your family, but also yourself. Mother culture, it isn't just for moms. It's for anyone who takes care of someone else. Mother culture is the cultivation of your soul, and it's choosing to add things that fill you up, that delight you. And when you choose to focus on the good, the true, and the beautiful, you're going to cultivate what's good and true and beautiful inside of you. How are you going to pursue mother culture today? You can comment below. You can also subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. If you subscribe to the blog, you can get free resources, including our 100 Hobbies to Create a Life You Love or a Book Bingo Challenge in your inbox every Friday. If you like this, please consider leaving a rating and review wherever you listen. This will help others find the show. You can also support the blog and the podcast by donating on the website. Until next time, keep creating a life you love and cultivating your heart for God.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of a More Beautiful Life Collective podcast. If you haven't yet, please leave a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts to help others find the show. While you're there, you can like and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Don't forget to check out the blog and our store for more encouragement and resources on how to create a life you love and cultivate your heart for God. I'm Casey Fletcher, and I'll see you next week.